We're interrupting our scheduled program to take you live to the campaign trail of election 2016.
Boost investment, boost productivity, boost growth, create more jobs, and over time increase real wages. So that is what he told the Parliament not that long ago. The problem with Bill Shorten is that he's not strong enough to do what is right for Australia. He hasn't got the strength to do what actually needs to be done for jobs and growth, because he has compromised the national interest in favour of the left of the Labor Party and the Greens. The coalition, in contrast, has a clear national economic plan for jobs and growth. We have a plan that will help drive more investment, more growth, more jobs, and over time an increase in real wages and living standards. So happy to take questions.
The opposition says that conditions in 2011 and conditions now are vastly different, and doesn't accept that's why it's changed its mind on this issue of company tax cuts.
A more competitive business tax rate is even more important today than what it was in 2011 to secure our successful transition from record resource investment driven growth to broader drivers of growth in a strong and more diversified economy. Obviously, Bill Shorten doesn't have the strength to do what is right by Australia. He doesn't have the strength to do what needs to be done in order to create more jobs and increase real wages over time. He's been captured by the left of the Labor Party, and he's been moving the Labor Party further and further towards the Greens. That is not what Australia needs right now. Australia needs us to continue to implement our plan for jobs and growth. Bill Shorten knows precisely what a more competitive business tax rate would help deliver. He knows precisely that a more competitive business tax rate would help boost investment, would help boost productivity, would help strengthen growth, and over time increase real wages.
But Labor maintains that there's no evidence of that, that a lower tax rate would actually boost jobs and investment.
That is absolutely the evidence that has been experienced all around the world for a very long time. I mean, don't take my word for it. I mean, that is why none other than Paul Keating lowered the company tax rate back in 1993. That is, I mean, Australia is entering its 26th year of continuous economic growth. The Australian economy continues to perform quite well, given the global economic headwinds that we have had to deal with and have to continue to deal with. Given the lower global economic growth, we are continuing to perform quite well. The results in the national accounts the other day were very encouraging. 3.1% growth over the most recent 12 months period. Stronger than the US, stronger than the United Kingdom. More than twice the rate of growth of Canada. But we can't rest on our laurels. We need to ensure that we secure a successful transition in the economy. Bill Shorten, doing the bidding of the left of the Labor Party, doing the bidding of the Greens, is not what Australia needs, as we need to secure the successful transition in our economy.
Bill Shorten says that he's supporting the cut of the company tax rate, just not the increasing of that threshold that we're talking about. To define this.
Well, Bill Shorten is opposed to a lower business tax rate for about 100,000 small and medium-sized mum-and-dad businesses which employ 2.2 million Australians. Bill Shorten is opposed to a company tax cut for businesses with an annual turnover of $2 million to $10 million a year. That is about 100,000 businesses around Australia, employing about 2.2 million Australians. The coalition wants those businesses to be the most successful they can be, so they can employ more Australians and pay them better wages over time. Because what the coalition understands, and what Bill Shorten clearly does not understand, is that for individual Australians to be the most successful they can be, we need the businesses that employ them to be the most successful they can be. Well, Bill Shorten actually does understand this. Bill Shorten knows in his heart of heart what the right thing to do is. I mean, he told the Parliament what the right thing to do is. He told the Parliament that a lower business tax rate will help boost investment, will help boost productivity, will help boost growth and create more jobs, and over time increase real wages. He was absolutely spot on. The problem with Bill Shorten is he doesn't have the strength to do what he knows in his heart of heart to be right. He doesn't have the strength to do what is right in the national interest because he had to compromise himself in favour of the left of the Labor Party and the Greens.
But what was the coalition stance back in 2011 when Bill Shorten was advocating what the Gillard government's trying to do and cutting the company tax rate? What was Tony Abbott's stance on what Bill Shorten was talking about?
Well, the Labor Party actually never put that legislation to the Senate, and the Labor Party, of course, the Labor Party was putting forward a mining tax, an anti-Western Australian mining tax, incidentally. They were attacking one part of the business community in order to pay for a whole range of things that clearly weren't funded. I mean, the genius that was Wayne Swan came up with a mining tax which attacked a very important part of our economy without generating any money. When Wayne Swan had already spent all the money he thought it would raise and more. I mean, that was a terrible thing to do. The mining tax and the carbon tax were two of the tax measures of the former Labor government, which made Australia less competitive internationally, which put lead into our saddleback at a time when we needed to be more competitive internationally, when we needed to actually focus on our future economic success. So, I mean, the problem with... That is not right. We didn't support a company tax cut that was paid for by a mining tax. We absolutely support a more competitive company tax rate, and we've put forward a more competitive business tax rate, which is funded within our budget. I mean, as you can see within the budget that we delivered on the 3rd of May, and as endorsed by the pre-election economic and fiscal outlook, our budget is on track to get back into balance by 2020-21. And it is projected to remain in balance over the medium term all the way to 2026-27. Like a tax cut for some paid for by a mining tax, which was a bad tax for investment, jobs and growth, and which didn't deliver the money that Labor thought it would raise, and which put the budget structurally in a very bad position, was not the way to go. Our National Economic Plan for Jobs and Growth, our comprehensive National Economic Plan for Jobs and Growth, including a more competitive business tax rate, will help boost investment, will help boost growth, create more jobs, and over time increase real wages. And Bill Shorten knows that. He just doesn't have the strength to deliver on it.
It seems that the government sharpening its tax on Xenophon. We've got Steve Chobo saying that he's protectionist. Is that a helpful attitude to take, given that you guys will probably have to be negotiating with him to get any legislation through the Senate?
Well, I don't know how you can say that describing Nick Xenophon as a protectionist is an attack. I mean, I think he would describe himself as that. I mean, Nick Xenophon is a protectionist. And our argument to Australia is that as an open trading economy, that would actually not be the right way to go for Australia. Our future lies in embracing international competition. Our future lies in embracing the opportunities that come from our exporting businesses, getting better, more competitive access to key markets overseas, whether that is China, Japan, South Korea, or in the future, hopefully, get better access to the Indian market, which is why we're pursuing a free trade agreement with India as well. I mean, the truth is that our future economic success will very much depend on how competitive we are in getting our goods and services, our products and services into the global market. And to go back to the bad old days of protectionism would weaken our economy, would weaken opportunity for people in Australia. And if we are committed to a set of policies which give people across Australia the best possible opportunity to get ahead, the best possible opportunity to be successful, and protectionism is not the right approach for Australia.
Could Australia's trade negotiations with Indonesia and India, for instance, be compromised if Xenophon holds the balance?
Well, you know, we are campaigning in this election to get the support of as many Australians as possible, to win the trust of as many Australians as possible. And we would encourage all those Australians who support our National Economic Plan for Jobs and Growth to support our candidates in the House of Representatives and in the Senate. It is very important for our future economic success that our government, should we be successful at the election on the 2nd of July, has got the best possible opportunity to get our National Economic Plan for Jobs and Growth implemented on the other side of the election.
Is Nick Xenophon specifically?
Sorry?
Is Nick Xenophon specifically a
Look, we are campaigning to maximise the level of support right across Australia. We are campaigning to win the trust of a majority of people in a majority of seats in the House of Representatives, and we are campaigning to win the support of as many people as possible when it comes to the Senate. Obviously, we would respectfully put the case to the Australian people that our national economic plan for jobs and growth is what Australia needs to secure a successful transition in the economy, and everyone across Australia who agrees with that, we would encourage to support us in the House of Representatives and in the Senate.
How much more does a domestic build of submarines cost relative to building them overseas?
The defence industry plan is obviously a core feature of our national economic plan for jobs and growth. We have made decisions, we have made announcements in relation to investments and support for local high-end manufacturing and the local shipbuilding industry when it comes to our investment in future defence capability. That is appropriate, and these announcements have all been made.
Is it fair to criticise Nick Xenophon for protectionism when you won't tell the Australian people just how much more it will cost to build submarines here in Australia, which could be considered protectionism?
We are totally committed to Australia as an open trading economy and an economy whose future economic success lies in selling more of our products and services in the global market. And that is why, as part of our National Economic Plan for Jobs and Growth, we have pursued a very ambitious export trade deal agenda. We have been able to sign export trade deals with China, South Korea and Japan, trade agreements which have been opposed by people like the Labour Party initially, certainly in relation to China. They had to be dragged kicking and screaming into supporting our export trade deal with China, and indeed other people in the Parliament. The truth is that for Australia to be as successful as possible, we have to ensure that our exporting businesses have the best possible opportunity to get our products and services into the global market. And we will continue, if we are re-elected on the 2nd of July, to pursue an ambitious export trade deal agenda. And of course our next targets are an export trade agreement with Japan, and indeed we're looking at what we might be able to achieve with the European Union.
On the issue of superannuation, are you certain that now every Liberal candidate or Liberal MPs are on the same page with regards to your policy?
We are certain that should the Turnbull government be re-elected on the 2nd of July, then we will be implementing our plan to make superannuation tax concessions fairer and more sustainable. There is a need for reform. There is a need to make our superannuation tax concessions fairer and more sustainable, and there is indeed a need to ensure that they help achieve the actual purpose of superannuation, which is to incentivise and encourage people to save more so that they can achieve an income for their retirement, which helps to supplement or replace the age pension. The purpose of superannuation tax concessions never was and never should be to provide a tax-effective vehicle for wealth creation or intergenerational wealth transfer.
But are Liberal candidates now on side with that? There have been some that have come out publicly saying their electorates are expressing concerns.
Well, there's obviously always a level of conversation about these sorts of reforms, but let me be very clear. The Turnbull government, if we are re-elected on the 2nd of July, will implement the reforms to superannuation tax concessions that we've put forward in the budget. They're the right reforms, they're important reforms, they're reasonable reforms, they're reforms that make our superannuation tax arrangements fairer and more sustainable.
Back on the company tax stuff, hasn't it been consistent with the coalition to say now that back in 2011 saying that they were going to oppose the company tax cut, but then last bill shortened the support?
We opposed Labor's mining tax package, which was bad for investment, but well, I mean, you can run the Labor Party argument if you like, but what happened is that we opposed the Labor Party mining tax package, which was bad for jobs, which was bad for investment, and which was bad for our budget, because it was a disastrous mining tax package. I mean, only the Labor Party can come up with a tax grab, which the mining tax was, which leaves the budget worse off, because Labor made all sorts of heroic assumptions on how much the mining tax would rise and what they could spend the money on. They spent all of the money they thought it would rise and more, and in the end, when it was all said and done, it didn't raise anything at all. And of course, that is one of the legacy issues that we had to deal with. This was one of the burdens that we had to take out of the economy when we came into government. Can you imagine what the economy would be like today if we hadn't got rid of Labor's mining tax, if we hadn't got rid of Labor's carbon tax, if we hadn't pursued an ambitious export trade agenda, if we hadn't pursued our national economic plan for jobs and growth? What we're saying to the Australian people is this is not the time to change direction. This is not the time to go back to the bad old days of the same old Labor, supported by the Greens. This is not...
The mining tax aside, the mining tax argument aside, which I understand, the coalition still didn't support the company tax proposals by the mining tax. That's inconsistent today.
Well, you can't take the mining tax aside. I mean, this was one package that Labor put forward as one overall package. And, it might suit your argument, it might suit Labor's argument today to try and look at these things in isolation. But the truth is that the mining tax package was bad for Australia. It was bad for our economy, it was bad for investment, bad for jobs, and indeed it was bad for our budget because it actually exposed our budget structurally to significant risk. And I mean, the proof, of course, was in the pudding, because that is exactly the way it played out. That is what we said back in 2011 when Labor put the package forward, and that is indeed the way it ultimately played out. We were proven right on the mining tax. It was a disastrous tax initiative by a disastrous treasurer, which was Wayne Swan. The problem for the Labor Party is that Bill Shorten hasn't learned from their past mistakes. It's still the same old Labor. It's still the same bad old Labor. And Australia right now needs to continue to implement our National Economic Plan for Jobs and Growth. We need to continue to do what needs to be done to secure our successful transition in the economy. And the last thing we would want to do is to go back to a Labor-Green alliance in government led by Bill Shorten. And I see that Bill Shorten is in Tasmania today. I mean, Tasmania is one of the recent case studies of the disastrous effect on jobs and growth of a Labor-Green government. I mean, now under the Hodgman Liberal government, the economy in Tasmania is strengthening and more jobs are being created. Ask the Tasmanian people how bad a Labor Green government was for jobs and growth in Tasmania. And I mean, that is something that Bill Shorten will have to explain in Tasmania today. How are $100 billion in higher taxes under Labor going to help growth? How are more than $100 billion in higher Labor taxes over the next decade going to help create more jobs? It won't. It would hurt the economy, it would cost jobs. Thank you.